Hello.
Hey, Vito?
Yes.
Hey, man, this is Andrew. I had talked to you a little bit on Facebook earlier about doing an interview.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good, man, good. Just wanted to ask you a few questions about your career. First off, I guess, start from the beginning. How did you get your start in wrestling?
Well, I was always an athlete, and I went to college. I was good enough to play, Division I basketball. I got a lot of scholarship offers to Division I schools, and I could never take no scholarships. My grades were really bad. I wound up going to community college. Played a little ball. I wound up trying out for the Olympic baseball team. Came back to Staten Island. Played semi-pro football, and then one day I was sitting home and I was watching wrestling. And I was always a wrestling fan. I said, I could do this. I wound up going to Johnny Rod's school. He's a WWE Hall of Famer in Brooklyn. And I went there 3 or 4 times. I decided to join the school. And then I was training 4 days a week, for 1 to 2 years. And basically, that's how I fell in love with the sport, and I'm still wrestling today.
Man, all-around athlete.
Yes, sir.
You kind of touched on it a little bit. Were you a big fan of wrestling growing up?
Oh yeah, I mean, my father was from Italy, and he always loved wrestling. And back in the day, he used to be a big fan of it. And I was in the house. I used to watch Channel 9, Friday nights, WOR, 12 o'clock. So that was a big thing to do. And I was a wrestling fan as a kid.
All right. What are some of your memories of working some of the early episodes of Monday Night Raw?
Well, for me, I'm kind of lucky in the business because I started out in the WWF, and not too many people, either they remember it or it's like part of my legacy. I mean, I started out at the very bottom in wrestling. I mean, went to wrestling school. I did indies. I was on, wrestling. My very first match in the WWF was against the Rockets. And then I wrestled Bret Hart for the title, his first title defense on TV. I got to wrestle the Undertaker, the Boss Man, the British Bulldog, Virgil, high energy, Legion of Doom. And, I was pretty lucky. I was good enough to be doing, live matches. I wrestled for Tonka a few times. I was doing a live TV match on Monday Night Raw. I wrestled Tugboat, which is another good one there. I was a year in the business. And, getting offense, people thought I was under a WWE contract, and it was a good learning experience. All the guys up there, they took me under their wing, and they were teaching me, and I learned, and I had an open mind to things, and, I learned from Johnny Rod's respect how to carry myself in the dressing room. And back then, I was I was probably the only non-contract guy to ever be allowed to sit in the dressing room with all the guys back then. And that's when, wrestling was wrestling, and kayfabe meant kayfabe, and, all the traditions were upheld back then.
Right.
And I learned from the best in the business.
All right. During your time in the WWF in the early 90s, what was kind of the atmosphere as, guys like Hogan were kind of leaving and being phased out of WWF programming, and it was kind of slowly switching over to the new generation? Was it something where, they maybe started flipping out a little bit because, the crowds weren't as big as they were in the 80s? Were they concerned about, trying to make all these new stars, or what was kind of going on at the time?
Well, kind of hard for me to say because, you got to remember, I'm still trying to find my way to being one of the regulars, you know what I mean? So, as far as knowing all the politics and all the behind the scenes things, I mean, if it was, that I'm not privy to, I just, learned my craft, did a lot of road trips with the guys, and learned the business. Now, as far as like the Hogans and the Warriors and, you know, the Macho Man and all those guys, I mean, when you say phase out, I think more or less you're looking at the fact that it was just a change in the times and the different direction. You know, that's when WCW started to pick up steam. And then when they started giving all the big contracts, you know, the guys had leverage to go to a different company, you know, and make more money. And that's when you had the great, you know, Nitro Wars, you know what I mean? And the, you know, war against Nitro.
Right.
But a lot of the stuff that happened. So I think it was just a trend that set. And, you know, there was, you know, good talent in WCW, just good talent in WWE. And remember, you're talking about guys who were wrestlers, who look like wrestlers, who were big, you know, muscular, big guys. And when I first started, I walked in the dressing room, everybody was like 250, 300 pounds, 6'4". They were all monsters. They were, you know, compared to me. And at that time, you had to be a big body. And that's why, you know, I started to grow and put on size. You know, I wrestled sometimes at 290 at one point, you know, because that's what they wanted. That's what the business called for. You had to be big. You had to be tough.
Right. I know you spent a little bit of time in ECW. How did you get involved with them?
Well, I mean, through my early career, I mean, I started going to WWF in 91. I had my first trip to NOW in 92. I was in Puerto Rico also in 92, 93. I went to Santo Domingo in 94 to wrestle for Jack Veneno. And to make it to the WWE, you had to go through Memphis. I wrestled for the USWA. Then I did 3 years for Carlos Colon in the WWC, which is probably some of the best education you'll probably get in all wrestling, along with being in the USWA, learning psychology and different styles and different territories. When I came back from there, I was in All Japan, you know, and I made it to the big company in All Japan in 98. When I came back, you know, I went down to, ECW at the Elks Lodge, you know, and Taz and Tommy Dreamer and Devon, you know, all came from Johnny Rod School. You know, we were all in the same class. And I went up there, and I asked for a chance, and, you know, I was kind of cocky. I was too good for my own good. You know, I knew how good I was. It's just a matter of just learning some, you know, how to eat humble pie.
Right.
And it's the best decision I ever made because they gave me a chance to be on, you know, on the main circuit, you know, back home, you know, instead of me wrestling overseas and going away. So I got my chance in ECW, and I did really well as a single. And then I moved to the Baldies, in which we had a good foursome. And probably, you know, if I would have stayed in the Baldies a little longer, you know, probably could have made, you know, a better legacy for us than what we did. I mean, we were probably the best, you know. I mean, you had Balls and Axel, you had New Jack, you had us. You know, when we started doing the hardcore stuff, and Balls, Axel, New Jack, you know, they all taught me, you know, some of the hardcore tricks. You know, and then when I got the call to go to WCW, you know, I kind of felt bad because, you know, I started to make my niche in ECW. And, you know, Paul Lee took me aside. I knew Paul Lee from, you know, from way back in the day. He said, Vito, you've been working for this your whole career. He said, they're offering you good money. You got to go. He said, you got your family you got to take care of. And, you know, I can't pay you the kind of money they're going to pay you. And, gave me his blessing, you know, and Paul Lee was good to me, you know, and, a lot of people crap on Paulie, you know, but he was a good motivator, you know, and, you know, you worked hard for him, you know, and, a lot of people bitch about owing money or whatnot, but, you know, Paulie never owed me a dime. He always paid me what I was supposed to get. I never had a problem like that, and, I have a lot of respect for him. He was a very creative guy. All
right, that's good to hear. I've actually, with the few other interviews I've done, I actually did one, earlier this morning with Angel, from the Baldies, and the guy's got nothing but good things to say about Paulie, so that's kind of, that's definitely a good thing to hear when you do generally hear everybody crap on him a lot.
Well, I mean, you know, which is like anything else, you know, you have your good days and bad days in wrestling, you know, and, you know, and if you ever hear any of my interviews, you know, I don't crap on nobody, you know what I mean? I always say the positive things, and you agree with everything that happens. Not all the time, but, you know, it's just part of the wrestling business. You know, when things are good, what do? You bitch. When things are bad, what do? You bitch. So
Right.
that's the general purpose of wrestling. You bitch.
Right. That may be the best explanation I've ever heard for it. How you touched a little bit about on getting a call from WCW. How did that all come about?
Well, they had an idea for me, and Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara took over in WCW, and they knew me from back in the day, Johnny Rollins, and they said we have an idea for you, and being that kind of like it was, WWE was always giving me a hard time about signing me back then. I went through the whole chain, and the funny thing, when I got to ECW, WWE offered me those tryout deals and go to their camps, and they were going to give me a contract. I said, no, thank you. I'm over here at ECW now, and I was doing good. And they always watched me. As soon as they made a play for me, that's when I turned them down finally. And I said, no, I'm going to stay here at ECW. And, when Vince Russo had the idea for me to team up with Johnny the Bull and Tony Mamalu, Johnny the Bull was, was in the, in the power plant. Tony Mamalu was really young in the business, and I had the experience. I had 10 years under my belt. And they said, Vito, can you handle these guys and teach them and, lead the way? And I said, yeah. So they put us together, and we were the most entertaining group on TV for a good, 2 years. Mm-hmm. Everybody loved our promos. Johnny and I probably were one of the best tag teams in WCW. Disco Inferno became manager of champions. Mm-hmm. And, when I had my chance to do the hardcore, it was a good, a good run for me. I mean, I fought Johnny, and then, I beat the man. I beat Terry Funk for the hardcore title. I couldn't ask for better than that. Right. And then along the way, I got to be, I main evented with Kevin Nash on Nitro. I did stuff with Goldberg. I had a tag team with Booker T. I wrestled the best. I wrestled Steiner before I wrestled Booker T for his title match, and I gave him a run for his money. And every match I was in, the people loved me. I was a good addition to the crew, and I was a great baby face, and people loved me no matter where I went. And even after I lost the title, I still, that kind of made me even more like, I didn't need the belt anymore, and it was gratifying when the people saw a hard-working guy just making it and fighting the best and doing the best.
What, once again, WCW is kind of a situation where generally a lot of people crap all over it. Was it a positive experience working there for you?
It was a great experience. I mean, who would want to be in WCW at the time? People, they say, a bunch of things, but you're learning, And when you're sitting in the back and you're playing cards with Sting and Goldberg and the Steiners, and you're having a good camaraderie with guys like that, and I got to work an angle with Flair and Luger, me and Johnny the Bull. I got to be in a lot of great things, and we were competing against the WWE, you know what I mean? And at that time when me and Johnny, I think we're the tag team champions. I think DX, or Billy Gunn and Road Dogg were tag team champions in the WWE. And that probably would have been a dream match for us to go against DX, but it was always good camaraderie, you know what I mean? There was the magazines, that's when the magazines meant something, and the ratings meant something, because I didn't come at a time when, you had to fight, and you were fighting against the guys who would just break it in, or like rookies, MMA against all the best, and you can't ask for anything better than that.
What was, in your opinion, what was some of the major factors that caused WCW to go out of business?
Well, just too many Chiefs, not enough Indians. Everybody just a lot of people in power and just a lot of switching. If they would have just left well enough alone at the time, I think everything would have been okay, and there wouldn't have been a panic. But, you know, everything was ratings and this, and there's a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of people making a lot of money, but, you know, too many change of directions. You know, that's not a ban on anybody. It's just, I guess, when people panic and they want to do, you know, different things, and you know, in one direction, one group of guys, you go in another direction, another group of guys, and you switch to another group of guys. You know, how are people supposed to follow anything? And I think that was the biggest downfall of WCW. Just too many Chiefs, not enough Indians.
Do you think it was a case of maybe, you know, 1 week on TV they would try something, and if it's, you know, if it doesn't bring like instant results, instant ratings, they had to switch it all up and do something else right away?
Well, I mean, they're all competing at the time, and you know what? And like, if you think of like old school wrestling, you don't build an angle overnight. You don't build something, you know, in a day. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day, and you know, for what they were doing and what they were, you know, their minds were at. It just like I think a lot of confusion. There was a lot of backstabbing and a lot of behind the scenes things that nobody knows about. You know, things I saw, things I heard, things I witnessed. You know, but I know what happens in the dressing room stays in the dressing room. What happens backstage stays backstage. You know, I'm one of those guys. I mean, if I could write a book, everybody would be shocked.
Sure. Now, you did spend a little bit of time in TNA. I believe it was 2004.
Yes, sir. Before I went there, I was with XWF for a while in Hulk Hogan's group, and you know, that was a good group. If we got a chance to get off the ground with that, you know, I think that could have took off. We had Hogan, we had Perfect, we had Lawler, we had Piper, we had Greg Valentine, and Jimmy Hart. I mean, you had a star-studded crew. And then Vince started signing everybody from XWF back to, you know, WWE. He took Hogan, he took Lawler, he took Perfect. You know, and that was kind of like the downfall of that. That's when I went to Germany. And I went to Hanover a few times to wrestle in the tournaments there where I won a prestigious Iron Man title. And then from there, I went back to Japan on several trips for NOW, and I got to tag with Tenryu. And I worked the main events there at NOW for quite some time. And that's when I came home, I went to TNA, and I started with the NYC. And it was me, Glenn Gilberti, Trinity, and Johnny Swinger. And we had a good run there. And as soon as we got off the ground, you know how politics are sometimes, all of a sudden this going, and Johnny Swinger was no longer part of the group, and we were like, what are you talking about? We just got a great reception. Everything is going good. Then they cut us. You know what I mean? It was like before we got started. And then from there, just, you know, it was like one of those things. And I think that was a young TNA. And, you know, I think that, you know, they learned, you know, they had their own growing pains at the time. And, you know, it was a good experience.
Do you think it's a fair comparison when a lot of fans tend to compare TNA to WCW? Do you think that's a fair comparison to make?
Well, you got to remember something. A lot of the heads, a lot of the guys who were in WCW, who were the leaders down there, were the leaders in TNA. So, I mean, it was kind of like the same mentality, the same concept. But, of course, it turned out to be the same thing. You know, so, I mean, on that note, yeah, it was the same kind of nonsense, you know, but, like I said, it's all behind the scenes stuff. And, you know, what you see is what you get. And they got that kind of mentality. You know, what are you going to do? You just go with the flow. You can't fight City Hall, right?
Right. Can you talk a little bit for me about moving on to the WWE and you know, I guess actually going back to the WWE?
Well, you know, finally, you know, you work your whole career, and you know, at the time when I started, you know, it was me, and at the time I was married, my wife. And, you know, and we had a project, and we had a plan, and you know, I was gonna make it. I wasn't quitting until I made it. And you know, she always stood behind me. She believed in me. You know, I mean, I was always away from home. You know, and wasn't an easy thing. And started doing golf matches for the WWE, and got invited by John Laurinaitis. You know, and they had an idea to put me with Nunzio. Finally, I got a chance, and you know, I'll never forget, I got a phone call. I was thinking about moving to Florida at the time. I was in between things, and all of a sudden I got a call that says, got a job. You know, been waiting for that call, I think, for 15 years, and it was like, man, finally, you know, I made it. And I headed home, called, you know, I called my ex-wife 3 times. We had separated, we got divorced, and, you know, the first phone call made us, and I finally made it, you know what I mean? And she just started crying on the phone, and it was all the hard work and all the dedication, you know, all the sweat, the tears, the heartache. You know, it was worth it, you know, and I always included her in all the good in wrestling because she was there from the beginning. She was my biggest fan, you know, before she passed away.
Sure.
And you know, when I made it my debut, you know, I helped Nunzio win the cruiserweight title, and I mean, at that time when I went, I was the right time in my life. I was polished. I grew up. I was ready for it. You know, everybody thinks you just go to WWE and you're a superstar, but you got to be groomed. You got to have the experience. You got to have the composure. You got to know what the business is about. You got to know your craft. A lot of people go today and they're unprepared. You know, they don't have that teaching. They don't have that schooling. But when you have that teaching behind you and you know what to do with it, and when you finally make it, it shows in your work. Like it showed in WCW and it showed anywhere I went. You know, I started out at the bottom. I made it to the top. You know, how many guys can say that? Not too many. You know, but when I finally got my chance, you know, I shined. And every time I was given the ball, I always ran with it. You know, and me and Nunzio became a great tag team. I think if we would have given a chance to carry the belts, I think we would have did some damage. You know, we had a good run, you know, with the cruiserweight title, and then you know, when they came up to me with the idea for the dress, I ran with that idea. So I thought it was a great idea. It gave me a chance to shine, and you know, I was undefeated, and I carried that thing, and it was. You can't just give somebody a gimmick and say, hey, you know, okay, do this. You got to be able to pull it off and make the people believe. And I learned how to do that throughout the years, and I knew what I was doing. You know, I didn't know how to wear a dress, but I made it work. Didn't know how to do stuff, but I made it work.
Right. That actually, that was my next question was, how did the idea to wear a dress come about?
Well, I mean, they came up to me with an idea. You know, and they said, you have this killer look like Adrian Adonis, but you're a handsome guy. And how about being the toughest man ever wear a dress? Then I said, I'm good with it. I said, ain't nothing nobody could do to me that hasn't been done to me before. One-on-one, I can handle myself. You know, 4 or 5 against 1, I might get my tail kicked, but I know somebody's coming down with me, you know, but I didn't even care. Like, you know, I got a lot of respect from the guys in the dressing room, in the business. I got a lot of respect from a lot of people in the world. You know, a lot of people looked up to me because I did it, because, you know, at that time, you know, people wish they could do, I mean, some people who live that lifestyle wish they could have did the things I did and wish they could be me. And, you know, so many people I met and so many people said, hey, man, I appreciate you doing that. And I know you don't live that way, but, you know, thank you. And, you know, I help a lot of people get through a lot of things by seeing some guy have a good time. If you're an old wrestling fan, a new wrestling fan, if you're a grandma, grandpa, parents, kids, all they saw was a guy, a tough guy wrestling in a dress. And sometimes they just forgot their problems for a few minutes. They got to sit there and watch me, and they had the greatest time of their lives.
That's awesome, man. What were some of the differences between working for WWE and WCW? I mean, was it like night and day, or was it, you know, overall WWE just a better run company?
Nope. The difference was we knew who the boss was, and it was Vince McMahon. In WCW, we didn't know who the boss was. And whatever Vince said would win. And, you know, I think that's the biggest thing in business. When you're a businessman, you have 50 people running the store. There's one person who runs the store. There's one way to do things. It's either my way or the highway. And Vince McMahon is a very creative man because he knows everybody's name. He knows everybody. He's got something for everybody. He's got a vision. Everybody criticizes the man, but he knows, you know, he's been at this a long time. But, you know, he ran it. He was there hands-on every day. He didn't let somebody else take his money and spend it. he spends his money. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you know, WWE, Vince McMahon, WCW, and he had a lot of creative input.
All right. How about what are you currently doing these days?
Well, I've been doing movies, and I've been wrestling, and I've been getting a lot of notoriety in the movie industry. I've been wrestling all along. You know, I was doing the NWE overseas for quite some time, and then I was doing a lot of tours. I lived in England for 6 months, then I came back, and then, you know, the economy kind of drained out wrestling spots financially. I started doing some other projects, you know, and even, you know, did something during the week just to keep my mind busy. And then now, you know, last in the summertime, you know, I did a movie called Apnea. You know, it's going to be opening this year. I'm getting ready to film another movie called The Church, and that'll be filming in February. And then there's another movie I've been doing in the UK called Rumble Llama, and I'll be doing that in the UK in May, June. So I have a lot of progress, you know, projects going on. I'm going to be going on the Hardcore Road Trip. That's on March 2nd. And then from there, I'm going to go back to Puerto Rico, PRWA. I have a collectibles signing. I have the dates coming up. You know, a lot of people are, you know, they're getting with things. You know, I'm getting a lot of stuff going. You know, a lot of bookings. And, you know, today I got a phone call. And, you know, maybe some good things are happening. So, I mean, that's all good. You know, if you always keep working at it, and you never know when you're going to get your number called again. You know, I'm still training the same way, you know, like I always did. And, you know, I'm getting ready to go back on the road. You know, my workouts, 1,500 squats, 150 Hindu push-ups. You know, after the squats, I do my cardio, then I go and work out. You know, people say I'm crazy, you know, but I've been working out like a maniac for my whole career. And, you know, if you're not in shape and you don't look like a wrestler, and there's one way to train. You want to be an elite athlete, you go and train like an elite athlete. If you just want to play it on the weekends, you're going to look like you're a weekend warrior. You know, I would never embarrass myself. I'd never make myself look bad. I would never both wrestling, thinking I could just go in tomorrow and, you know, just be somebody. You know, because that's not Vito. If I can't be Vito, I don't want to be. You know, I don't want to be this guy they remember. Oh yeah, you used to be. No, I still am. Always one of the best in the world. I'm still your toughest opponent on any night. You know, win, lose, or draw. You know, you're gonna get your money's worth from me. I always bring my A game. And can't be a guy in the business who said they had an easy night with me. You know, I always give 110%. You know, whether I was wearing a dress, being a tough Goomba, you know, doing the tag team, you know, whatever I was doing, you know, in the world, you can get a full night's work out of, you know, Big Vito the Skull Lograsso from Staten Island, New York.
Sounds good, man. Glad to hear you're keeping busy and, you know, not only staying active in wrestling and staying in shape, but also going down the acting avenue as well. Lastly, man, is there anything you would like to say to your fans?
Well, I'd like to thank my fans for always standing behind me, and it's always a pleasure to meet you anywhere I go. You know, and they always sign my autographs, and, you know, it's always a pleasure, you know, to do that for my fans, the least I could do for their support. I'm on Facebook at Vito Lograsso. I'm on Twitter at Vito Lograsso. You know, I'm on LinkedIn at Vito J. Lograsso. You know, if you have any bookings, you can catch me on anything like that, or you can catch me on Vito J. Lograsso at AOL.com. To all my fans out there, I want to thank you very much for your support through these years, and you never know who you're going to see on TV soon. You never know.
Sounds good, man. Well, Vito, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with me tonight. I really appreciate it. I will go ahead and get this all posted, and I'll be sure to send you a link, man.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much, and hope you have a good night.
Hey, you too, buddy. Take care. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
See ya.